you paid for it.
Okay.
That's true.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am too. Is this it?
I think this is it.
That's not-
All right. Does everybody know our guest? So I think he's a familiar face around at least one person anyway. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will establish a quorum by calling the roll call. Mr. Mance?
Aye.
Mr. Luther?
Here.
Ms. Steiner?
Here.
Mr. Mann? Here. We have posted the certificate of open meeting, so we are qualified to conduct business. First item is the acceptance of the minutes of the February 22nd meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Suze. Any additions, corrections, deletions to the February 22nd minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Mance?
Aye.
Mr. Luther?
Aye.
Ms. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Mann, aye. Those minutes are approved. Second, the acceptance of the minutes of the special board meeting held March 13th. Is there a motion, please?
Start development board.
Motion made.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Suze. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Mance?
Aye.
Mr. Luther?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Mann, aye. Let the minutes record that Mr. Sibla has been granted permission not to attend. The next item will be the financial report as soon as we get
Gary, you're here?
perfect timing.
You just got started here. Hang on. All right, thank you.
We have a
All right, you're on speaker now, Gary.
Can you hear us, Gary?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
We conducted the first part of the meeting. We happen to be right to the financial report. So before you give that, what's the weather like?
Weather is beautiful. That's one thing you can never complain about.
So you're what, 75
Well, when there's a hurricane, but other than that, it's
75 and sunny? 75 and sunny?
Yeah, that's about what it is this morning. Yes, 30% chance of rain, so not much at all.
And the percentage chance of snow? All right, you're up, Gary.
That's Ohio. All right. So as far as the statements that you have in front of you, I would say the most notable thing is our unrestricted net balance remains very strong. It's at $1,087,000. Of that amount, if you look at the top, we have in Star, Ohio, $855,000 invested. The remaining $232 remains in the Huntington account and gets overnight sweep, and then the remaining $355 is the restricted amount associated with the Hall of Fame Village project. So that's basically the net position in a nutshell. The only outstanding Hall of Fame Village funding is the $13,383,000, and I'm only mentioning that now because in the next page I'll show you where they made their January and February payments, but then also that was retired on the 22nd, I believe, when they closed. That money was sent to Huntington from that deal, so that'll go away in the March report, but I did want to kind of point it out there. So to turn to the next page, this is the general fund summary. Significant items in February where we received the Stark County grant of $25,000. Investment income was $972.98. And again, you'll see the reason the 259 was highlighted was I had put it on the statement. I was waiting for proof that they had in fact made the payment, and so I just didn't take the highlight off. That was my kind of reminder that I still needed a copy of that to have it for my file. So, but other than that, that was really, and the expenses were immaterial, just a small bank fee, and then the hosting of the report for the repository. We did the advertising on that. So that's it for the general fund. The Hall of Fame Village, so turn to the next page. The only thing that we received was the 24 cents in interest related to the $354 that was still in the fund. That left us with $354.99, and it still remains there as a present, unless I haven't seen anything else. And then the last page is just the check register, and you'll see there was very minimal activity. The repository check is there for the $49, and then down below you see the corresponding, anything that happens electronically, I just throw down below, so you see the Hall of Fame principal and interest, and the bank fees for the 2 months. So those tied to the reports. that's it. It's been very minimal. I know you guys have been very busy, and then once the closing came through, there was a lot of supporting documentation and everything. But as far as in the month of February, our transactions were very minimal.
Questions for Gary?
Good job, Gary.
Yeah, excellent job, Gary. Are we due for an audit anytime by the state?
Yeah, we're in the middle of the audit. I had a conversation. Dan knows that, and kind of picking at him, getting everything that I needed. The financial report is finished, and I just have a couple comments to finish on the MD&A regarding, because I wanted to include just a paragraph on the $150,000 grant, because that was the only reason that our net position fell last year. It went down by $87,000, but that's despite giving the one-time grant of $150,000. So I wanted to, I just got that from Dan Lewis yesterday again. I just asked for it, but anyway, my point was to elaborate on that paragraph a little bit once I saw the net position decline, just because that was the rationale for it. So as soon as I do that, it's due to them by April 15th, but they'll have it long before that. So.
Any further questions of Gary? Let's go ahead and approve the financial report. Is there a motion, please?
A motion to approve the financial report.
Thank you, Ron. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Suze. Any further discussion? Gary, have a wonderful day.
Okay, you guys have a happy Easter as well. Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Mance?
Aye.
Mr. Luther?
Aye.
Ms. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Mann? Aye. The financial report is approved. Next item is the discussion of the project and term sheet for the Hall of Fame. Dan, you are ready.
Well, I'll kick it off and then turn it over to Don, since he's the board's financial advisor and in-house expert.
That's how much I know. Dan or Ray, it should be.
Yeah. We've been presented with a request by the Hall of Fame Village to enter into an agreement with Summit County Port Authority to finance a tax increment financing bond that was created by the city of Canton. We have, our attorneys have worked on this previously last year through the summer and fall, and then things got stalled. And it's back again now that they've received the cash from Bridgeland. And it's in a little different format, but basically what they're asking from us, as the Port Authority, is the same, and that is to enter into a cooperative agreement with Summit County and the city of Canton, which allows Summit County to issue bonds. And Don can give more detail on the transaction.
They're terrific. Thanks, Dan. The updated term sheet was dated March 2nd after a number of things had come together. And just as kind of to touch base, take a step back and refresh the Port's memory. Cooperative agreements between multiple ports on economic development projects are fairly common. Dan and I were chatting this morning. The Stark County Port has actually done 4 cooperative agreements in the past with Columbiana County, Lake County, and Summit County. And they were the Goodwill Project and the Canton Christian Home and Shearer's Foods, and I think Timken, right, Dan?
The Broadview Development Corporation.
Broadview, oh, I'm sorry, Hercules, I'm sorry, Hercules. So they're fairly common. The role that the port would be playing in this would be allowing a issuer of bonds from another municipality, another region, to issue the bonds here within Stark County for a project within Stark County. We, as the owner of the improvements, okay, would be involved in 2 major things. 1, signing the cooperative agreement, and then 2, being part of the construction process, entering into a construction agreement to allowing, to document what improvements had been made as far as infrastructure with the stadium improvements. So I'd like to just go through page by page. I highlighted some of the things that I thought I'd like to bring to the board's attention, if that's okay, Ray?
Yep, that's
And
good.
And the other thing, just as kind of a stake in the sand, Dan started to mention it, the Summit County Port Authority, which is now known as the Development Finance Agency of Summit County, they're issuing these through their bond fund, okay? So they have reserves that are backing their bond fund. There are additional reserves funded in this TIF transaction. And they are, it's very clear that it's non-recourse to the port down
Yeah, I
there.
read that.
So the Development Finance Agency is taking no risk whatsoever. The bondholder is assuming that they've got access to these reserves, Roger, and to the TIF payments, assuming they come, and to any other reserves and deposits. They list in here what the flow of funds, the priority is. So
I thought the document was pretty well put together.
very detailed.
When I went through it and marked it up,
Yeah.
I thought, boy, they
Yeah.
crossed their T's and dotted their I's.
Yeah, very detailed. And they outlined, there of course will have to be a tax exempt bond opinion given. That will not come from our attorney because we're not the issuer of the bonds. That will come from Retzel and Andrus, their bond issue. So, our role is really to permit them. They have agreed that they have confidence that these revenue streams, these revenue streams from the tax payments will be adequate to pay this. It's also interesting to note that it's the bond issue is a 30-year bond issue on the TIF, which is pretty long, and that it resets the rate every 10 years in there too.
Yeah, man.
They have covered most every eventuality you could think of.
Except a high interest rate environment, because even though they're fixing, they're still fixed.
Yeah. No, they put a cap. There's a floor and a cap. You probably saw.
I must have missed that then.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
But I mean, I thought it might be more floating as opposed to
Yeah.
fixed, to be honest.
Yeah. And we are not aware. We don't know who the bond buyer is. They haven't disclosed that. That's the end of you. They haven't disclosed who their institutional bond buyer is. Have they? I think it's a private placement, so they don't need to.
Well, they're showing the bond purchaser as this Cuyahoga River Capital LLC.
Yeah. Okay. So that's who's purchasing the
And they're
bond.
buying all $11 million worth, is that right?
Mhm.
That's what we think.
Do you know who they are? Not that it matters, but I mean,
Well, Don knows one of the principals there, Brian Stephan.
Brian Stephan.
Used to work with the bank with him.
and now is he related to Mike Stephan, the dentist down here?
No. No.
They're not related.
No, he's an Ignatius kid from Westlake, Ohio.
Well, that explains a lot.
That explains a lot. That explains a lot.
My neighbor's an extinct.
Anyway, I think it's also interesting to note in the term sheet very frequently that the approval of what the funds are used for has to come from the city of Canton and has to come from all of the relative parties who were involved here, the Stark County Port and the city of Canton. And then also, it references frequently the Canton City School District about their need to be made whole and that they're on board with all this. So none of this happens without a collective agreement that all those things are going to fund.
Yeah, and to me, that shut the door on any possibility of, should we say, a misuse of proceeds. Because everybody has to sign off on everything.
Absolutely. It's much different than past protocols.
Right. I mean, I thought this was tied down pretty nice.
I think so. I agree with you, Roger. One final item is that if the board is comfortable with moving forward with the cooperative agreement, just Dan and I were chatting about the process. Ray and I and Dan have been having conversations with the Ports Council and Bond Council in terms of we've had issues in the past with this group on cost of issuance and fees. We're going to put a box around the fees. This is what it is. It's not changing. And Ray is at the point on that, but we've got input from all our providers at this point, including what the port service fee is for doing this. So that hasn't been final because we haven't gotten to that point, but we have a pretty good handle on that.
And I talked to Chris Burnham from Summit Port last night, just to update. They're having a meeting on, I think, the 6th, which I'll attend. But he's, you know, with this bond holder, it sounds like they have a relationship with them. And I'm very confident that their board is ready to move forward. This was sort of mothballed for a while, but now it's ready to go again.
You want to talk about the fee?
Yeah, I did talk to Chris about the fee, which was what was originally put in the document. And that fee, they're still fine with the fee that we're charging for our services. And we got our attorneys fed back to Don what their costs would be on this, so I feel very comfortable with the fee, and I think so does the board, so I think we are fine on that.
And again, Don, we're a conduit. No liability whatsoever.
And we're not even a conduit on this.
Yeah, we're just-
They're the conduit,
they're the conduit.
and we're allowing them to issue their conduit bonds in Stark County. So we don't even have a role. We have no involvement with that bond issue whatsoever.
So win, lose, or draw, we're not involved.
Exactly.
Questions of Don,
Yeah, you-
Ray, or Dan?
yeah, you-
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned the construction, that there's some oversight that we have to provide.
Our lawyers will have to review the documents. The improvements, the infrastructure improvements have already been made in the stadium. So what we'll just have to review, bond council's going to give an opinion that the school board and and Summit County have to agree on. Their bond council's made. But it's going to say what is infrastructure improvements around the stadium that's been done, and what is permanent improvements that are the stadium that are not public infrastructure. So we just have to sort through and read their reports, our lawyers do, to make sure we're comfortable that what's being reimbursed is only publicly authorized improvements that qualify for TIP funding.
So what's happening here is the TIF monies based on the taxes on the stadium and the youth fields is being monetized over a 30-year period.
Correct.
And someone's issuing a bond today and paying back debt that's been issued already on the stadium, and then they'll receive a stream of payments for 30 years
Exactly.
from the real estate tax. And so what is the value that is, do we know what the value that's based on these payments, the stadium value and the youth field value? What are they basing?
Well,
here?
they only identified in here that to date, they did say what the improvements were to date, but I don't think the county auditor has given their final opinion, you know, on that tax value.
Are you looking at
150 or 151,000? The other thing of the TIF payments that I'm sure you read, 75% of the TIF payments will be captured by the county auditor. They're getting a fee for administering that, and 25% goes to the school district. So it's not the full TIF revenue that goes to that. Let me just find that one section real quick. There's a fee, an estimated county TIF collection fee of 1% based on the annual service payment. There's also a trustee fee and the administrative fee for the bond issuer. And they reference their ordinance that they passed also. The other issue is that over and above the TIF payments, there's a $500,000 debt service reserve, okay? There are additional reserves within the bond fund. And then, without any editorializing, there's a guarantee by the three parties. There's a second series, a minimum payment test, so that if the TIF revenues fall short for some reason, then there's a minimum payment test, and there's a guarantor provided by,
Bottom of page 4, I think.
bottom of page 4. Yeah, there we are. So the TIF service payment, and then there's the minimum service payment. I just want to find out where the paragraph is where they identify the 3 guarantors.
You mean the Lickner personally guaranteed?
Yes, Lickner, the
Yeah,
Lickner Trust.
Page 4.
Page 4.
For 3 years.
Yeah, well, they guarantee it until it hits a minimum stabilized revenue of 130 debt service coverage. So the guarantee, I believe, and I'd have to check with our lawyers on this when we see the bond documents, the indenture, but I think the guarantee only goes away after 3 straight years. The TIF revenues have hit 130% of the debt service coverage.
1.25.
1.25.
Yeah, debt service.
Let's see. Oh yeah, I was thinking of the additional bonds test, right?
Who put this agreement together, do you know that?
Yes, I do. DePerna, Michael DePerna's group.
That's reviewed by George Sarkis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good format going forward, I thought.
I'm assuming that the school board has or will sign off on this because it's a 3-year, not a 10, and it's 100%.
That's,
75%.
yeah, I don't have any direct information about that, but they would have to sign off on it.
We talk about our fee, does that fee and then any cost of legal and stuff, is that something that reimbursed over and above our fee, or is our fee to cover?
And our fee covers everything, so what we did on this was we went to our attorneys and said, because this is a little more straightforward than things we've done
So
in the
tell us.
past. How much is it?
So they fixed
We have an agreement that says this is your cap.
Yeah.
You sign off on that?
Yeah,
We do.
We
that's
do.
my
We
concern
gotta
is,
get those under control.
Yeah, those have to be capped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, and we've had discussions going forward, again, with hotels, garages, things like that, where we're not dealing with what we dealt with in the past. We're getting a fence around those fees before we go down the road. And I think Brian Parisi from the village would like that also, because he's trying to navigate the financial side on their end, and he needs to know before rather than after.
and just so long as we protect ourselves from.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first,
Escalating.
that
Escalating.
first go around was
Was a lesson.
how not to do something.
Right.
Right.
Well, there were a lot, I think there were an awful lot of fixes and changes constantly in the stadium. In my opinion, Mr. Chairman, the standalone conduit deals, you can really get your arms around it because you know who the borrower is, you know what the debt structure is, you know who whether they're using an insurance company, a bank, or a private placement. So you can get a really good handle. The other thing that Ray and I have both discussed with Sam and Bruce is we need a fixed fee that covers this all the way to closing, that's paid at closing. And unless the borrower changes the structure of their financing or increases the size of it, if they have material changes that cause our people to do extra work, then once we hit that number, we need to notify them that there's changes that are causing this. So we want to stay ahead of this all the time.
Yeah, and I would hope your relationship with Brian is going well as it
Yes.
so that if we do run into bumps in the road going forward, at one of your luncheons, you two can sort that out.
We're having lunch today, so he's very good and been very helpful about as we've navigated this. So I think having him in place going forward will be a big benefit for the project.
I did note that that I think they're a little aggressive. I don't think this can close by the date they referenced in here, but I did notice in here that there's a $50,000 penalty payment if they don't close by June 8th. So in discussions with the Perna and people, they want to close in May. I know May, early first half of May, with where we are, right now, may not happen, but they're going to try and do that. But in no case should it close before, later than the end of May.
Further discussion?
So we don't know what other means and mechanisms are going to be used or anticipate to be used to pay off the current indebtedness at the stadium other than
That's
This
right.
TIF bond.
Just this, the net, I think, is 9,008,000 and some change after the reserve and after the cost of issuance. But that's gonna go in, but you're right, we don't know where the rest of the funding is at this point.
It would be more correct to say not Stadium Hall of Fame Village project, because it covers both the hotel, the garage, the stadium,
But,
infrastructure.
But what's being TIF'd is the stadium and the youth field.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right. And that alone.
Yeah.
but if we do approve this, we've got everything behind us now.
We do.
And anything that's coming forward, we start from scratch. Is that right?
Every single new project going forward will have its own term sheet, its own cost of issuance, and its own set of lending and credit underwriting that we'll have the opportunity to evaluate and say yes or no.
Yeah.
And today, we're not asking for any approval for SAM. It's just to discuss it with you because we still have a lot of documents we need to go through.
So we're being asked just for approval to move
No.
forward?
Just
discussion.
Just information.
Discussion.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We got you up early just to talk to you.
Make sure you understand what's going on.
And Dan, when do you think, when we are ready to bring it back for approval, do you think that'll fall in our regular meeting?
Hopefully, we can take care of all that on March or April 29th, 26th. Or regular meeting.
Okay.
Dan, you indicated the date that the Development Finance Agency is going to their board to adopt their resolution. It's the, is it the
Got it.
9th?
April 9th, yeah.
April
Monday.
9th. So they're going to pass their resolution. If they've got the green light from us, we're willing to enter into the cooperative, they'll pass their resolution. And at the end of April, we'll have our lawyers, at that point, we can say, you're being retained, here's your fee, we're going to pass this in April, and we're going to close in May. It's a much more structured process this time.
Yeah, if you think about it, we don't want to approve it before they do.
No, I agree.
Oh, no.
Oh, absolutely.
Put that document in our hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Last to approve.
So that's all I have this morning, Mr. Chairman.
And Don, thanks. Further discussion regarding this agenda item?
And that's the 26th of April, right?
That Thursday?
Last Thursday.
Okay, just check.
Yeah, I put mine in the calendar as the fourth one, nothing, it was the fifth one, so I had mine
I
coming.
did that before, now
Yeah.
now I have it as the last one.
Yeah, I did that and I realized that it was like, oh, okay, it's not.
I have my
it's the last.
calendar at home in pen.
I know.
Yeah.
You're old school.
I'm so old.
It works.
All right. Any further discussion regarding this agenda item? Is there anything else to come before we get to the management report? Ray, do you have anything?
Nothing on the management report.
Do you want to talk about the DNO, or do you want to do that?
Well, it doesn't require a board.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else to come before the meeting today?
Could I just ask how Jumpstart's doing or how that?
Yes,
is going?
I'm glad you said that. That would be a good management
I
report.
just, yeah.
I think depending on how much we have on the, since we know we're going to have a meeting at the end of April, it'd probably be good to have Rashu, who's doing the Jumpstart effort, give you an update. But really pleased with the progress, especially on the workforce end of it. The workforce is there.
Yeah, wow.
And so he's working very closely with Joe Chaddock from the schools, Stark Educational Partnership. There's an event shared with Ron that Joe is trying to introduce juniors and seniors as a start to the workforce, the opportunities and careers. So they have 8 locations where if you're interested in health services, they'll bus all the kids from Stark County to one of the schools. They'll have interaction with people in that field. They'll do resumes. And that's really just the start. The hope is eventually that Joe would like to have the freshman class have some kind of internship or mentorship with a business. So that's one small initiative we're doing. We've organized the business retention and expansion calling efforts. And that has, we've taken 8 partners and we're all making calls. The goal is to get to 582 businesses. We've targeted, put a database together. help them. To give you an example, I went to a business 2 Fridays ago that's invested $3 million in new equipment that we could have actually helped them with, but because it was after, the state of Ohio doesn't look back. So those are the kinds of opportunities if we're more proactive instead of reactive. So that effort is going well. The other area that is just sort of the collaboration that we're starting to see, and that came through with a thing called the Opportunity Zones. The Trump administration has come out with a program, and I really like it. It's if you invest, they've identified census tracts that are underserved, and they have said that there's $6 trillion of capital sitting on the sidelines because of capital gains tax they can be put to work. So what they went to the state is said, we've identified these areas, these tracts as opportunity zones. You have to pick 25% of those. So our community had 1 week to pull all that together. So we had somebody get our data together, the Fund for Our Economic Future. We had the City of Alliance, which had potential opportunity zones. We had the City of Canton, and we had Massillon that would have qualified. You had to prioritize those. 1, 2. We felt that we could have 8 based on the percentage. And what we heard from the governor's office is that if you collaborate and you collectively turn in something, because anybody can
More
turn
likely.
in, you're more likely to get what you want.
Makes sense.
So we had the Mayor Catazero, Fonda, we had Joe Mazzola from Alliance, and the call took 8 minutes. Everybody sort of said, why don't you move yours up, put ours over here. And so we got all 8 of our opportunity zones. And what was really neat is throughout the whole state, you were able to have 13 adjacent zones. So if you had a project that was going on, even though it might not have qualified as a tract, if it was next to an opportunity zone, you could submit that. Out of the whole state, there were only 13. An adjacent tract to the Mercy, which did qualify, was a Hall of Fame village. So we got that tract as one of the 13 in the state of Ohio. So what that means is if you have capital gains, and say you sold Microsoft, you bought low and sold high, and you had a huge capital gain. If you invest in an opportunity zone, you can defer that capital gains for 10 years.
Defer it.
Defer it.
That's not eliminated. Okay.
However, if you invest in something in that zone and you get benefit from that, that's also tax-free. So there's a huge benefit to invest in these opportunity zones. So the governor now sends that back to the Fed. Fed will rubber stamp, we approve these as opportunity zones. And then the next step is you have to compete. Because every state will have them on why your opportunity zones are investing.
A better return or.
So ours are one in Massillon, which is downtown Massillon, which qualified. We have, I think, 3, 4 in Canton, Mercy, Altman, which was a good area because they're doing some projects, Hall of Fame Village, and then Alliance, downtown Alliance, was around the State Street area, which has a lot of investment going on. So hopefully, the next step after we get approval is that we start, those 8 zones, we'll start putting together material to market them as a great place to invest capital.
I know the commissioner said send a letter and support. What's the time frame on
It's back in the
decisions?
feds.
That's back. So the state actually approved
They're done.
what the application submitted was?
Yes.
And the feds have to fish it?
They represent.
So all 8
All 8 got it.
of Stark County got the nod from Columbus
Right.
at least?
And we actually submitted 10. The last 2 we submitted, we didn't think we had a real good shot, but we figured they'd go through and cut. And so we wanted something on
To give them the cut.
to get them to cut.
And did they?
Yes.
Okay.
Good
Not
call.
to be disappointed.
Good call.
So, but it was really neat. Credit goes to those partners because they really worked quickly, pulled it all together and submitted it.
And that's a lot. How did you find out? From the governor's office?
No, actually from the Fund for Our Economic Future out of Mark Smolczyk chairs that, and they came down and said, we think you have a real opportunity here. So if
Great.
it wasn't for them,
Collaboration.
Mhm.
so it worked well.
Yeah, that's,
And that's all, even though that's not in a plan, this work, I think,
Yeah, oh,
has sort of
no.
helped us.
No, I just think that the people that you brought together to help all this, and the workforce thing is so important because there's so many jobs out there that we can't find good qualified people to go to.
Ray, are you sensing there's a little bit of a change of attitude in working together?
Yeah, you know what, I do.
I mean, I can remember when I came to town, if we transferred somebody from a branch in Canton to Massillon, you would have thought the world was falling
Oh,
apart.
yeah. That was my favorite
Seriously,
teller.
wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah, my favorite teller.
Oh, they
My
wouldn't
favorite-
know.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are all numbers business people. It's, our shoe from Jumpstart says data is the best antidote for antidotes. You can't argue with that.
Right.
So when you go to anyone in the community that goes, well, that doesn't affect
Me.
me,
Yeah.
and all you have to say is, okay, the trending is very, we're getting older, we're getting smaller, we're getting poorer. You don't think it's going to affect you or your mom. It is. You look at our Stark County School enrollment from seniors to kindergartners. The trend's there, so we just have to work to change it. I think we can. I do.
Oh, that's great, because
We
that,
do it if we don't try.
yeah. Any update on 30?
No, not on third. I know Richard is.
Today's.
He's
Richard's hiding in the bushes in Richfield.
Yeah, he's trying to get in.
Just jump out with a pizza that says around 30.
He's staying low these days anyway. Any update on the hospital situation?
No, I was in a meeting yesterday, and they are still looking at options for the hospital. We do have a potential buyer for Union Metal, a good buyer, and we got that building has some need. It's an older Union Metal building. It's
50 years, more than 50 years old.
I was going to say Jerry worked there in college.
has some roof issues, it has some machine issues. This company that's looking at buying and five metal manufacturing companies, they own 72 of them, they keep them in the community, they get involved in the community. It's one gentleman who owns it, it's not publicly traded, it's one guy. And he's really likes Union Metal because the brand's been around obviously
Yeah.
for a long time. So the goal is to reopen it with 150 workers. They've committed to the state. They've worked with the union to, within a 3-year period, have 250 back to work. So that is promising. We got help from the state to keep that factory open and operating in Stark County. They gave us a grant if the deal goes through to help fix the roof and get the machinery needed to get the plant back up and rolling.
That's a good company. People always say.
Yeah.
And look at that Sam Kaplan Alliance, I hope there's a succession plan for a one owner
Yeah, I was gonna-
company.
If we were involved
I mean,
in
that thing was a
life
one concern.
Oh, yeah.
Just fell apart after that guy died in the plane crash.
Yeah.
Does anybody know
It
what
was
happened
sad.
here overnight? Because they said a building on 3rd or 4th, somewhere in Cherry, part of it collapsed, and they're gonna have to tear it
There
down.
was it had some, it was next to the Haven Brush.
Oh, Refuge of Hope.
So they're.
Yeah, I want to go back that way to the office. It happened last night
It knocked out their refrigeration
at the
system.
Refuge of Hope
So they're looking for generators or refrigerator trucks to save their.
to save their stuff.
But yeah, there was
It's in the radio.
this collapse of building, I think, next to.
Yeah, so, right,
The old
3rd or
Yes.
4th.
Are they set up for a generator? Do they have a hookup?
I
Because
don't
we might
know.
could, EMA might could help find them something.
They had given, I heard a number to call.
WHBC, it was on WHBC, they may know something.
Yeah, we could give, I can give that all for you.
Emergency director reach out to them
Yeah.
and see what
Yeah.
they need.
Yeah.
Plug them into
Put
their
'em in.
resources. Yeah.
Because they said they were fine overnight, that they were able to stay. It happened, I don't know, like 2, 3 in the
Yeah.
morning or something.
It was, they said the old Camp Brewing location, Cherry,
I
and
remember seeing that on the brick. I'm gonna head up that way. It's only like 3rd, 4th, 5th, right in
They're
there.
going to campaign right now.
They are for a new building. Yeah, they're, in fact, I think they've raised most of it.
yeah,
Maybe we should go.
Yeah.
Good program.
All right,
Okay.
anything else to come
No,
before
that was good.
the meeting
Thanks, Roy.
today? If not, is there a motion to adjourn, please?
So,
Is there a second? We have a motion, a second. I'll call the roll. Mr. Mance?
aye.
Mr. Luther?
Aye.
Ms. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Mann, aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Larry, you get a chance to go on the rest since you...
Good update. You live in it all the time, and I just thought I'd ask you
Yeah.
because I don't, you know, you do so much every day.
Moving, so it's
It's like a